I've always wanted to be financially independent. I've always been an entrepreneur or had an entrepreneurial mindset. I had so many ideas growing up. I even was looking into like buying a sausage cart back in the day. But I I started around like 22, 23 with my own recording studio. I was always recording myself from a young age and just working with digital audio recording workstations. And I decided to take that skill and make a business out of it.
Welcome to the On Fire Podcast, episode 17,
with your hosts, Matt
and Kellen. On Fire is a weekly, semi-weekly podcast where we discuss financial independence, life hacking, frugality, minimalism, and living within your means.
Reviews. We need reviews, guys. We love the positive feedback loop. It's been a while since we did an episode of the On Fire Podcast. We're hoping to change that. And one of the ways you can help change the fact that it's been so infrequent is leave us a written review on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, wherever you consume this podcast. It really does make our day, as well as it makes it easier for other people to find us.
Today's guest is Kent, aka Kool Kent. Kent is an entrepreneur, house hacker, YouTuber, and can be found foraging for dandelions in your backyard for his morning smoothie.
I love Kent's perspective on everything. He's just such an extremely open and honest guy. He's that way on his YouTube as well as on his Instagram, and I think he just really opened up to us and shared his perspective, his experience as well. Stay tuned because you're going to find out about guaranteed income.
Let's dive into our interview with Kent. All right. Welcome to the show, Kent. Appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, welcome, Kent. We'll dive into this later, but can you give us a brief summary of what the last year or year and a half has looked like for you?
Yeah, for sure. So I'll go like 2 years. Basically what happened was I was working a job. I was an electrical design tech at a company for about 2 years, and I got really good at that job. And I was able to, I was so efficient that I was working like 3 hours a day, and they were very happy with the amount of work that I was doing. And with all my free time, I was just watching a lot of YouTube. I got really addicted to YouTube, and I started watching channels like Project Life Mastery and Matt, your channel, and stuff like that. And I started learning about all of these ways of building passive income and generating money on the online. And basically I quit my job and went to Thailand, where I went to a digital nomad conference. And at the digital nomad conference, I learned about something called eBay dropshipping and started doing that. That was last summer. I was doing it in Canada, and that I learned pretty quickly that was just pointless. So I got a American bank account through BMO called BMO Harris, and started setting up an American eBay dropshipping store on ebay.com, of course. And I've been building that up ever since and just kind of working on it slowly. And I've been also working on a Amazon store, which I have actually been taking a little bit more seriously. I've been building up those, doing lots of research on real estate investing. Right now I'm doing house hacking. I have a house that has a basement apartment in it. We rent out the basement apartment to pay for our mortgage. And I'm just still madly addicted and in love with YouTube, learning as much as I can about, lean fire and minimalism and, passive income and investing in the stock market, index funds, all of that kind of stuff. I'm addicted to learning how to escape from this matrix of the 40-hour work week that everyone seems trapped in.
That's super awesome. You're talking about dropshipping. We haven't had a whole lot of talk about that on our podcast yet with other people. So, you're talking about eBay store and Amazon store. Like, which of those is going to be your main focus? Like, which one have you had success with so far?
I've had success with both of them, and I plan on building both of them up at the same time, because in the early stages of building up my Amazon store, my Amazon account was, I forget what it's called, but it was shut down by Amazon. Basically, I was just building up my store way too quickly. They make you send them an invoice. I was buying all of my stuff from Walmart.com, and they don't like Walmart invoices. They want to know that you're buying from certified wholesalers, but they have to accept it because it's not really like, they don't like that people are just buying things from Walmart.com and selling them on Amazon.com, but it's not against their rules. So after, like a month of emailing them and having to actually hire a lawyer to write me a letter, I finally got my Amazon store back. So that scare forced me to want to build up both the eBay and the Amazon store. So On eBay, basically what I'm doing, you literally just find products from like Walmart.com, HomeDepot.com, Amazon.com, and you list them on eBay, markup of 40%, and that should pay for the taxes and the shipping, etc. And plus usually get you around 15% profit. And you just, if someone buys it off of you, which it's a numbers game, like if you have thousands of ads up, then you're going to make a certain amount of sales every day.
So maybe just talking about like how you decide what products to be selling. Is there a certain niche you're focused on, or are you really just looking at what will allow for that 40% margin and just anything that fits that metric?
You can just go by just literally, like you can do your research or you can not do your research. There's two different ways of going about it. Basically, I do it both ways. One way is you can use a program called DS Genie or Dropshipping Genie, which you can find different sellers that are doing the same thing that you want to do, like dropshipping, and you just search their store for any products that are selling, say more than 4 times a day and are sold for like over $20. Then you just kind of steal their listings and list them for yourself and maybe make them a little bit cheaper and then make those sales. Also, another method you can do is literally just kind of ignore eBay, go to Walmart.com, find a product, put it on eBay, mark it up by 40%, and then just optimize your listing. And then, using keyword programs and stuff like that. So yeah, those are the two different ways that you can list things on eBay.
So how many ads do you have up? You mentioned the idea of having thousands of ads and it's just it being a numbers game. Like how many ads do you have up and how long does it take to set up one ad?
One ad for me, it used to take me probably 10 minutes. Then it took me around 5 minutes. And now I can do one ad in about 2 or 3 minutes. I only have about 150 listings right now, and they're all like pretty well optimized. And I know that they're selling because I use Dropshipping Genie to find my products.
So we'll do back to the roots. Can you walk us through your background, how you came to discover the idea of financial independence in the first place?
I've always wanted to be financially independent. I've always been an entrepreneur or had an entrepreneurial mindset. I had so many ideas growing up. I even was looking into like buying a sausage cart back in the day. But I started around like 22, 23 with my own recording studio. I was always recording myself from a young age and just working with digital audio recording workstations. And I decided to take that skill and make a business out of it. When I moved to Barrie, I started renting out a recording studio, and I was doing that for a couple years. And I didn't really enjoy, first of all, working for kids, recording kids. And second of all, I didn't like trading my time for money. I was just working a lot of hours and working really, really hard and really hustling and didn't like it. Then I went back to school for electrical engineering. Then I got that job at the company that I was working for and learned about, passive income and making money online from YouTube. And that's where I am now.
Interesting. So kind of building off of the YouTube. So, we checked out your YouTube. Kent recently, for our audience, started a YouTube channel as well as your Instagram. And so we noticed you talk a lot about health. So would you mind just kind of diving into a little bit more your kind of thoughts and perspectives on health?
Yeah. So health and wellness, basically, long story short, because this story could be as long as I want it to be. I was really, really unhealthy. When I was working at that recording studio, I was drinking like 5 coffees a day.
Wow.
I was just watching a lot of TV. I just ate garbage, microwavable pizzas and all that crap that, college students eat. And basically, I was just getting more and more tired and more sick and just feeling crappy. And as I talk about on my YouTube channel, one night my buddy came over with a bag of mushrooms and we did those magic mushrooms. And it was that night that I realized that I had to really start changing some things in order for me to do the best that I can in life. Because making money is literally just energy exchange. And, the more energy that you have, the more money that you're going to make. So I started working out. Usually if people can stick to it for more than a year, you're going to start realizing that it has everything to do with diet. So I started adding more vegetables into my diet and I started doing some research. And I came across, it was through listening to the Joe Rogan podcast, I came across keto, through Dave Asprey and the whole bulletproof diet thing. And that helped me for a long time. I was doing that quite strict, the keto diet, for about 2 years. And I was feeling great, and I was having a lot of energy, but there were health problems that I was having and did have that I wanted to fix. And keto wasn't necessarily healing those issues within my body. Fast forward to when I was working at the company that I was working for, and I was addicted to YouTube. I also started watching a lot of vegan YouTube channels and kind of getting rid of my ego and kind of just listening to what these people had to say. I started really grooving with it and understanding it and started applying it slowly yet surely. Now I'm vegan and I practice a lot of fasting. I do a lot of juice fasting. I'm really into herbalism. I think that herbs are the main thing that people want to get into if they want to start improving their health. And the biggest thing that I'm really into is eating foraged food directly from my property or from the land around where I live. I think that the food, the dandelions, the plantains, the wild greens like that, their genetics are so strong if you compare them to plants like spinach and kale and stuff, which if you've ever grown it before, you'll notice that they're kind of pussies. They need a lot of sun, they need a lot of watering, like they take a lot of work to grow, but dandelions and plantains can grow in a sidewalk or, in a little tiny puddle where you would never think a plant could grow. So these plants have like really strong genetics, and because of that, they are extremely healthy for us to eat. And that's one of the main things that I'm into and that I consume daily are foraged greens, foraged mushrooms, foraged flowers, and things like that. Things that, literally go from the ground into my stomach within minutes.
That's really interesting. And you're sharing a lot of that stuff in your YouTube and your Instagram. When it comes to your YouTube channel, how has it been affecting your life for the positive or for the negative, and your Instagram as well? I know it takes a lot of time to manage those things, and you have a message and you want to expose the world to these ideas. How has it affected your life and like for the better or for worse?
That's an interesting question. I just love being creative, first of all. Like having a YouTube channel, there's so many little creative aspects of it, like making the thumbnail and the description and the tags and everything like that. But literally, it comes down to the fact that the more positive energy that you're putting out there and the more you're doing, the more philanthropic, I forget what that word is, the more good things that you're doing for people, the more you're going to get back. So it's not necessarily for any money gains or anything like that. I'm just trying to spread positive energy in order to get that back. It's karma. I'm playing the game of karma. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's great. And on a one-to-many scale.
Mm-hmm.
We know a little bit about your background. You've both worked as well as being self-employed. Do you mind just kind of diving a little bit more into that? Which do you prefer, and kind of what sort of advantages or disadvantages have you experienced being self-employed versus an employee?
There's a lot of benefits to being self-employed. Personally, I don't really find many benefits at all to being an employee. I don't like having to work 40 hours a week. I do not think that is worthwhile. Like there's no employee that you will ever hire that is going to work a full 8 hours a day for you. If you were to hire someone and only make them work 5 hours a day, I think you would get the most efficient and the hardest working employee possible. So I think that whole 40-hour-a-week thing it's pointless. But I guess one of the benefits of that would be security. But I don't really worry about that because I know that I can live off of things like dandelions. So job security.
And so actually, I kind of want to touch upon that as well, just because the foraging sounds like a frugal activity. Is it frugal?
Oh, yeah, man. They're free.
So how much time a day are you spending foraging, and how did you learn about that?
I learned about that from a YouTube channel called Marcus Rothkrantz. He's really sick. He has a book called Free Food and Medicine, it's called, and I bought it. It's like a 400-page book, and it explains all of the different wild herbs that you can use to heal yourself, and also all of the poisonous ones to stay away from, which surprisingly, there really isn't that many at all. But yeah, it's saving me money because I also juice them. So last summer I was juicing just inordinate amounts of greens, like just loony amounts. If I was buying them from the farmer's market or from the store, I probably would have literally been spending like $20 to $30 a day on the amount of greens that I was juicing.
Wow.
So yeah, so it's amazing. And plus I also forage a lot of roots and stuff like that. And so I'm foraging like dandelion roots, burdock roots, thistle roots and stuff like that. And I use those to make teas, which are also extremely healthy, extremely mineral dense, and just extremely good for you. And, if you're buying teas, tea is pretty expensive too. So it's saving you money. Like the more you can learn to use the land around you, the more money you're going to save, and therefore the less amount of money that you will have to make.
It's funny, like a lot of these, I've said before, a lot of these ideas of, frugality and minimalism and financial independence and just like not being wasteful, they all tend to go hand in hand. And that's a prime example of like, the fact that they're like what a lot of people would consider weeds are, can be extremely healthy, and they could be part of your life, and they could be free and they could be, or like cheaper. And these things all just tend to go hand in hand.
They really do.
So Kent, you'd mentioned that you'd taken a trip recently, kind of touched upon the idea of digital nomads as well. So did you see that as being a practice run for financial independence, or was this just kind of travel? How did that all fit into kind of the lifestyle you're trying to build for yourself?
Basically, making money online requires your attention to be put on that business and learning about it and just working and hustling online and living at home and living even a slightly normal lifestyle like what I live right now. It takes too much of your attention. Like literally, the brakes just broke on my Jeep and I have to get them fixed. And that's going to take me, hours this week. So there's just so many little things that are pulling you every which way in this matrix that we're stuck in. So traveling and just going somewhere and only having your backpack and living a really minimalist lifestyle like that allows you to put so much more focus into building something like an eBay dropshipping store or an Amazon store. So that's the main reason that I did it. But I also just, I love the fruit in those countries. We were in Vietnam and Cambodia and Thailand, and the fruit is amazing and the coconuts are incredible. And, coconuts are $1 a piece. And I lived off coconuts for almost a whole week, just doing a coconut water fast. And, like $8 a day to drink coconuts all day is pretty phenomenal. There's a lot of benefits to traveling,
Yeah, that's really neat. And I mean, when you live out of a backpack, I can just imagine what it's like when you get back to society and you see all the crap people have and you see their house full of stuff. Meanwhile, you're like, hey, like I can live out of a backpack right now. It must really put things into perspective.
Was it hard to live out of a backpack? And if so, one of the things we've been getting from a few of our other travelers is like a tip on one item that you can't travel without.
That's interesting. I'll answer that one first because I don't remember the first one. Obviously, my computer. You know what I mean? I still want to keep up with all my best friends like Matt on YouTube. And the second thing, honestly, one thing that I think a lot of people have happened to them while they're traveling is you get constipated a lot because your body knows that you're traveling these long distances and it gets really confused. And it will hold on to that food for longer periods of time because it's confused and it doesn't know what to do. So it doesn't your digestive system kind of slows down and stops working. So one of the most important things that I would say to bring with you are an enema bag. Like I've traveled with my sister back in the day. We went to a resort in Mexico. And she doesn't really have much problems with constipation, but she was constipated literally for 6 days at this all-inclusive resort. And that's not a fun thing, when you have...
It ruins it.
It ruins it. Unlimited amounts of food to eat, and you can't even go to the bathroom, you know what I mean? So just make sure you bring an enema bag with you because that can really ruin your time when you're traveling to different places.
Interesting. I don't expect we'll get that tip in the future, so I appreciate it.
No problem.
And so the first question was it hard for you to live out a backpack? Was it hard for you to downsize to that point when you went on your trip?
No, I'm an all or nothing person. Like I can switch anything. I would give everything away right now just to start again. Like my ideal way of living right now would be to sell everything I own and, go into the mountains somewhere and live off the land. So changing is not hard for me in any way. But unfortunately, I have a wife and she is not down with that. So
yeah, change is great. Some people really thrive with some stability or like consistency in their lives. Definitely a challenge to balance those. So when you talk about the idea of living out of a backpack, quitting your job, jumping into the self-employment thing, doing the drop shipping, going to these retreats, there's not a lot of people that have done what you've done and actually take the leap to like quitting their job and taking these chances. Have you always been comfortable with this approach to life and approaching life in this unique way?
Have you got a lot of resistance from that?
Yeah. They always, like, your parents want what's best for what they think is best for you. So, you're going to be fighting your mom every step of the way. But like Gary Vaynerchuk always says, is you kind of got to tell your mom to go fuck herself. Like, you have to go out there and you have to make mistakes, and you have to, the best way that you're ever going to learn is by making mistakes. So you got to go out there and you got to do things differently than everybody else, because you can't travel that same road that everybody else is traveling if you want to make something of yourself.
Yeah. Unless you want to reach the same place they've reached, right?
Yeah. And that's just not
Any
what I want
tips
anyway.
on how to get more comfortable with that for our audience members if they're still sitting in that 9 to 5 but dreaming of not having it?
Interestingly enough, like I would say the best way to do that is to change your mind. And you can meditate to change your mind, to change the way that to relieve yourself of the filters that you're currently seeing through. But the easiest way to do it, in my opinion, and what really changed my mindset was psychedelics, mushrooms. I started smoking weed when I was living in Barrie. Weed was there with me the whole time. It just allowed me to just see through the bullshit that society is, and culture. I would say those drugs can be very beneficial for you for a short period of time, as long as you don't abuse them like I did for a long period of time, which I'm happy to say that I have gone a couple days now without any weed, and I don't plan on going back to it at all, because I didn't find that it was helping me all that much. And I'm happy where I am in my life, and I'm happy with the trajectory that I'm on. So I do not think that I need it anymore, and I'm very happy and proud of myself for that.
Wow.
I know that you
That's
said
actually really interesting, man. I appreciate you sharing that.
No problem.
That's got to be a big change, right? Like, that's been kind of a recurring theme on your Instagram and that kind of thing. But like, what drove you to want to change that up?
It wasn't helping me anymore. I think our bodies, like, if you abuse a drug and you use it too much, our bodies will not benefit from them at all anymore. Like coffee. I was drinking like 5 cups of coffee a day at one point, and every time I would drink that coffee, I would be able to go and accomplish a bunch of tasks. And I loved it for that. You know what I mean? It was really, really benefiting me at that time. But now if I drink even one coffee in the morning, it raises my heart rate, tightens my whole, all my blood vessels, and I feel really uncomfortable. So if you abuse a drug like that, you're going to lose the benefits of it. And I'm kind of terrible for that with my all or nothing mentality. So I wasn't benefiting from marijuana at all anymore. And I had to finally accept that. And it's been hard, because it is an addictive thing, and it's a social thing, because I love doing it with my friends,
Yeah.
But I'm done with it, and I'm happy to be clear-headed and to move into the future with, a better outlook.
That's really interesting. And maybe just to share some perspective, because this is really timely for myself as well, that like Kent, I was using weed daily for a very extended period of time, multiple years essentially. And recently, the last month, I've started experimenting with not using it, or only using it in very limited situations. And it is interesting. I think for myself, at least partially, it's just, again, just changing any habits, usually good for myself, right? Like, it just brings other things into perspective. You're going to start dreaming again, Kent. You can look forward to that.
Oh, I know. I had amazing dreams last night.
Let's circle back to your travel there, Kent. So when you originally left, did you have a timeline, a budget involved when you started traveling? Because this was for quite an extended period of time, right?
Yeah. I've went to Southeast Asia twice now for 3 months at a time. Our budget, I guess, was just to spend only around $50 a day. And we were able to.
Is that fairly easy to do?
It's quite easy to do. You can buy a whole pineapple in those countries for $1. And, that can be a whole meal. Like, these are pretty big pineapples. So, the hostels are never any more than like $20. In Chiang Mai, we were staying at a hotel actually for $20 a night. It had a big pool, and it was a really nice time. And we were spending definitely never more than $50 a day between me and my wife.
Wow, for two of you. That's crazy. Did you, when you created this plan to travel, I think a lot of people procrastinate, or maybe they have these dreams and they have these places they want to go, but they don't really make it a reality. How did you make it a reality? Did you have a firm plan set in place, or did you just know, hey, we're going there for 3 months and see what happens?
Yeah, Pretty much that. The hardest thing that people have to do is quit their job usually, or, try to get 3 months off of their job, but you just got to do it. I think planning too much is just going to slow you down, in my opinion. So I would say just buy the tickets and go and figure it out while you're there,
And so is there anything you'd recommend people spend maybe money on while traveling? Was there certain things you maybe spent more than you expected on that gave you particular value, or?
Not really. No.
Pineapples.
Yeah, pineapples,
So
Coke.
do you see Southeast Asia as being a big part of your future then? Like once you maybe get your Fulfilled by Amazon up and running bigger, or your eBay running more, is that your end destination in part?
No, that's not my end destination. Like, we have a house here in Lindsay, Ontario. So this is like our main spot. And I definitely plan on being here for at least half the year. I love this. I love Canada for, all year except for the winter. But after listening to the Matt Pichet, the Fruitful Investor episode of your podcast, like, I'm a lot more interested in Costa Rica, which we were already planning on going to this winter. Funny enough, I learned so much about Costa Rica in that podcast. It was fantastic. So I don't know if I can get together $80,000 and go become move to Costa Rica and start my own fruit farm or something like that. That would definitely be a pretty viable option for me.
So you kind of mentioned your place in Lindsay. If I remember correctly, there's kind of a unique story about, for a while you were on a rental program or a guaranteed income program or something like that.
I'll go over that. So basically, about 2 years ago, when I was working at that company, funny enough, it came out on the news that Ontario would be getting a basic income test pilot, and they hadn't chose where it was going to be, and they were going to be spending like the next year or so figuring out where it was going to be. And I was so excited. I was just doing tons of research on what universal basic income is. And I started really following the Ontario Basic Income website and stuff. And I was always sharing the new information that was coming out about it and always talking about it. Then they asked the followers to write a short essay on where they think that basic income should come to it and why. And I was living in Toronto at the time, and I actually wrote an essay about why I think basic income should come to Lindsay, Ontario. And I grew up 20 minutes outside of Lindsay, Ontario. At the time, I had no idea that I was like a year from then I would be living in Lindsay, Ontario, So I wrote that essay. And then when I moved here last summer, I went to the Lindsay Fair, and there was a booth for basic income. And they had little sign-up sheets for it, where if you signed up, they would send you the information and you just basically had to sign up for it. And I couldn't believe it, because I had just spent the last year, working, making very little money. I was technically under the poverty line, and I was definitely a perfect candidate for the basic income, because you have to make under a certain amount in order to get onto it. Somehow, I manifested this reality where I have gotten on basic income just by thinking about it and talking about it. Now, me and my wife, most of our basic needs are met by the income from our rental property below us, and also basic income. It's incredible how what you think about comes about.
That's awesome. So you have a rental property. So what's it like managing that rental property while you're traveling? I know for myself and for a lot of landlords, they're going to be managing the property while they're either living in it themselves, if it's a multifamily building, or they're in the same city. But what's it like trying to manage it remotely? Any tips you could share for any fellow landlords?
To be honest, we got really lucky with this place, and there's been no issues with it, really. There was a slight flood that happened to the renters over the winter, but they took care of it. And yeah, we got really lucky with this place. It's just a really well-built place and perfect location. Just keep putting out that positive karmic energy, and I think the universe will keep giving it back to you.
I love that. And I think we hear quite often the single family home idea tends to be a little like boring in a good way investment strategy. You get people in the house that take care of it and they treat it like their house, versus multifamily, where people tend to treat it more like an apartment building and they put a little bit less care into it.
So
absolutely, yeah.
So talking about financial independence a little bit more, do you have a financial roadmap? Is there a financial independence number that you want to achieve? And then at that point, you'll put the eBay or Fulfilled by Amazon or doing courses or YouTube on the back burner?
I don't really plan on putting anything on the back burner. I like them all. But honestly, my goal is to be making 20,000 per month, almost completely passively by the end of like next year, probably. By the end of this year, I want to be at least 5,000. That's off eBay and Amazon together. Right now, I'm easily making around 1,500 per month on eBay and Amazon together. I think at 20,000 per month, I could live really comfortably and travel to some more expensive countries, like Europe and stuff like that. And just be able to, at that point, I could start helping as many people around me as possible and putting out more of that positive karmic energy. And 20,000 is just a number that I thought of. Like, if I can keep scaling up these businesses, which I do plan on doing by hiring virtual assistants and the like, I will scale it up to as much money as possible, just so I can spread that wealth and help people as much as possible.
That's awesome. So do you have any tips for like fellow aspiring world travelers? Any ways that they can maybe travel on a budget and get around the world and not spend a ton of money? I know you talked about Southeast Asia being a great frugal place to travel, living for under $50 a day. Any other travel tips people can do to save money?
Yeah. I am going to be taking a travel hacking course from these podcasters or not podcasters, but travel video loggers that I found on YouTube called Nate and Kara. They're really awesome. I just heard them on a travel podcast called Zero to Travel Podcast. They're really sick. So I'm going to take their travel hacking course, which teaches you how to, use credit cards and things like that, and, reduce the amount that you have to pay on flights and stuff like that. One thing that I would say right off the bat, if you don't want to get ripped off by booking flights online, just turn off your cookies. And if the websites know that you're coming back to them and looking at the same flights, they will just keep increasing the costs, every day. Like, you could look at it the next day and it could go up $100 just because they know that you're interested in that. So just make sure the websites aren't keeping tabs on you.
That's really interesting. That's so sneaky.
It's so sneaky, man. And I've got tricked with it too many times.
So what are some fire locales you would recommend for people that are just starting to travel? What are some countries they should consider traveling to on a budget?
I would say Southeast Asia, because Southeast Asia is definitely really cheap. Everything's going to be like, definitely a lot less than half the price that you're going to pay here. I'd say close to a quarter of what you're going to pay around here for anything. And then I would say Central America. Central America is basically just as cheap as Southeast Asia. And the good thing about Central America is that their time zones are lined up with ours, which was kind of difficult to deal with running an eBay store in Southeast Asia, because all of your orders are coming in at night while you're sleeping, and all the questions are coming in at night, and you got to deal with them. Your day is their nighttime, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, Southeast Asia, Central America. And then there's a lot of really cheap countries that I'm learning about lately, mainly on the Travel Like a Boss podcast that I also listen to, in Europe. Mostly in Eastern Europe, close to Russia. So places like Ukraine, Bulgaria, those are all really cheap and totally viable options for traveling and seeing, just incredible architecture and just getting an awesome European experience for a really cheap price.
Cool. So when you're traveling, how closely were you tracking your spending? And how did you decide when you were going to splurge on something and spend a little bit more?
We weren't really watching our spending all that much, but that's just because we're minimalists and we're very frugal in general. You know what I mean? Spending any money does pain me. I'm pretty cheap. So, we just go to the fruit markets and we make sure that we spend under a certain amount for our dinner and under a certain amount for our places that we stay in, hostels and stuff. It's not very complex. These countries are so cheap to stay in. It's almost like, if you watch some of the video loggers out there, it almost seems literally impossible to spend, more than $50 a day for one person, for sure.
So now that you've done like all this, trip around the world and that kind of stuff, what would you do differently, if anything? Like, was there any steps that you took that maybe you would have approached differently if you'd started over, or something maybe you'd recommend to other people, lessons you've learned?
Oh, good question. I definitely wouldn't have quit my job so early. And the main reason that I regret quitting my job is because it's harder for me to get loans now that I'm not employed to invest in more real estate. And I could have just invested in a whole bunch of rental properties before I left and then really set myself up a lot better than I did. But I'm still doing it by partnering with some different people and stuff. And I'm going to be partnering a lot more after listening to the Matt Pichet episode. But I also would have started building my eBay dropshipping business I would have built it up to, at least bringing me $1,000 a month or something like that before I left, which isn't hard to do. You can build up a eBay dropshipping business to $1,000 a month in 6 months, easy. And then, like they say, like building an online business and getting from 0 to 1,000 is the hardest part. Getting from 1,000 to 10,000, it is so much easier. So just get your online business started and growing. And then when you travel, you can really start scaling it up and putting more time into it.
Yeah, I think you've kind of highlighted for me that this idea of fulfilled by Amazon or the eBay business, that actually sounds a lot more attractive when you start breaking it down. You mentioned you're kind of consistently making $1,500 a month right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so essentially, if you were spending under $50 a day in Southeast Asia, that's pretty much a sustainable lifestyle at that point, right? You could indefinitely live like that. And I think that's actually just really powerful. That's something I just wanted to really hit home in case listeners hadn't put those two different facts together, because that's actually really awesome.
Yeah, that is. That's the total Tim Ferriss idea of like earning in pesos, earning in US dollars and then spending in pesos, or here in our case, it's Canadian or US dollars. That's super powerful. Yeah. Right? You can make good money here and then spend it somewhere that's a lot cheaper and get an amazing lifestyle for a lot less money.
Yeah. $50 a day is American too. So it's not even Canadian. So, it's probably about $75 Canadian. And the only reason that I'm not making more, like I said, is because I'm choosing not to scale it up at this point. Because actually, if I make too much, then next year I won't be able to get on basic income. And basic income's so easy, and it's such an awesome thing for me right now. It's a free like $1,500 a month. So yeah, I don't want to. It's perfect. Like I could infinitely build up my eBay store to making like 10 grand a month by the end of the year, but I could also just hold back and just chill on basic income for a little while.
So talking about the eBay store and the fulfilled by Amazon a bit more, do you have any concerns about how long-term will this income stream be? Do you see this being something that can survive 5, 10, 20 years? Or is this something that's more of the moment?
No, I see eBay definitely as a viable option forever. There's been people doing eBay drop shipping now for 10 years, or more, even as a full-time career, basically. eBay's not going to go away. Amazon's not going to go away. They're both going to get more competitive, and you're going to have to learn new ways of doing things. But that's just kind of the consequences of being an entrepreneur. Both businesses, you can scale up and hire people to work for you, though, where you can, at some point, you can be making as much money as you want and only be working like 20 minutes a day. So, as for it being too much work in the future, no, I don't think so. I think it's definitely something that you can do forever, especially if like on something like Amazon, you're building a brand or something like that, which me and my wife are. My wife has her own brand called Sweat Happy Wellness that we're building right now, both on YouTube and Instagram. And we plan on private labeling some products. So some different like workout and fitness products that we're going to be selling on Amazon through her brand. And it's a little more sustainable and a little more of a real thing, doing something like that, creating a real brand as opposed to just selling other people's products, which is what I'm doing right now. But that's just kind of the short-term game.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people underestimate the value of personal branding, because even if you do end up in a situation where eBay is not a viable option 10 years from now, maybe the next thing has come along, and rather than having to transfer your audience from eBay to the next thing, they're following you on Instagram or they're following you on all these other forms of social media, and you've built this personal brand such that you can help migrate them to any other platform that then gains popularity.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I'm doing with my YouTube channel too. I plan on creating maybe an eBay dropshipping course for Canadians in the near future. And also I plan on, maybe just creating a store in general where I sell anything really.
Awesome. Cool. Well, I think this is a good opportunity for us to dive into our Fire 4. So there's 4 questions we'd like to ask each guest. And so the first one, Ken, is just what are you grateful for?
My mantra in meditation is gratefulness. I practice holding that feeling of being grateful for the universe and, the abundance of the universe and the abundance of everything around me. I try to stay in that state as much as possible by using it as my mantra. So I'm literally grateful for everything, but I'd have to say I'm most grateful for YouTube. YouTube is just the most beautiful and amazing thing in the entire universe.
That's awesome.
So on the kind of an opposite end of the scale, what's a guilty pleasure of yours, or maybe a tool or something that you can't live without?
Guilty pleasure. I don't know. I don't think I'm guilty for any of my pleasures, but I use something called Ormus or monatomic gold. If you want to do some research on that, it's a way of getting gold into your body, and basically it allows you to conduct electricity in your body. And I believe that has a lot to do with the faster rate that I've been manifesting things in my life over the past few months. So Ormus or monatomic gold.
Interesting. Okay, cool. Is there a frugality tip or a life hack that you'd like to share with our listeners?
Yeah, get into fasting, shrink your stomach so that you don't have to eat as much. We're totally tricked by the amount of food that we're told that we have to eat growing up. So if you can get used to eating a lot less and stop eating such dehydrating foods, then you're going to be able to live off a lot less. So, eat more fruits, eat more foraged greens and stuff like that, food that has a lot of water in it, and you're not going to be craving food all day, and therefore you are not going to be spending as much money on food.
Love it. What would the hero of your own movie do in your life right now?
Good question. I'm always trying to be that hero right now, but he would stop worrying about getting basic income next year, and he would scale up his eBay business and start making 10 grand a month as soon as possible.
I love that. I think it's funny because the answer to this question is usually the opposite of what people are doing. Either that, or it's kind of a cop-out answer, and people are, I'm already doing exactly what the hero of my movie would do. But like generally, the hero has a struggle, and it's people want to see like, I'm going to overcome this challenge, and I'm going to do the thing that I know I should be doing. So it's cool to hear that your actions aren't necessarily aligned with what you think that the hero of your movie in your life would do right now. So it's cool to jog that thought for you.
It's a great question.
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks so much, Kent, for being on the show. And before we wrap things up, we always like to get our guests to ask the audience a question. So this can be kind of whatever you want to ask them. In the past, Michael Rosehart asked, what is enough? Graham Stephan just asked people to smash the like button. So this is kind of your opportunity to just ask whatever you want of our audience.
Yeah, I thought about this one. I would tell people to start thinking in terms of energy and start analyzing your life and figure out where your energy leaks are. And energy leaks are things that you're putting energy into where you're not getting anything back, either people or addictions that you might have. If you're giving something a lot of energy, you should always be getting that energy back. So my question to everybody is, where is your energy leaking?
Ooh, I like that. Alternatively phrased, what actions in your life have a low return on investment?
Bang on.
So where can people find you or follow you or get in touch with you? You got your Instagram, you got your Facebook, YouTube. Instagram and YouTube. What's the name on there? How can people find you?
Kool Kent with a K. That's my Instagram and my YouTube channel. So if you just follow me on Instagram, then you'll see the link to my YouTube. I would suggest to just do that.
Awesome. Thanks again so much, Kent. Really enjoyed having you on the channel. And we look forward to maybe touching base in 6 months or a year and see if you're up to 10,000 a month.
Thanks so much. I would love to do that.
Thanks a lot, Kent. We'll talk soon.
Yeah.
That was a great episode, and I loved learning more about Kent and his backstory.
Kent's openness and willing to share his story candidly was amazing. It was awesome to see him become part of the basic income group by taking the steps a few others would.
And while you're waiting for the next episode to come out, and hopefully it comes out quicker than this episode did, jump over to Facebook and join the On Fire community and follow us on Instagram, On Fire Podcast.
And make sure to tune in for the next On Fire podcast to meet more people, hear their stories, and learn from their mistakes.
Thanks for listening. This is Matt.
And Kellen signing off.
And until next episode, remember, being normal, buying stuff doesn't make you happy, and always remember what Christopher McCandless said.
I'm going to paraphrase Thoreau here. Rather than love, than money, than faith, than fame, than fairness, give me truth.